My name's Joe. This was after a casual drink with my colleagues at the end of the workday. I think it was a little past 8 o'clock at night. Just as I was about to enter the convenience store near my house, a young girl came out there. The smell of shampoo wafting from her hair was so incredibly strong that I half turned my head and followed her with my eyes. Sure enough, I knew her. She lived in the apartment building across from mine. Though we had never spoken, we would give each other a nod if we happened to see each other in front of our apartments. She had a short haircut with a little flip at the ends. I'm not great at understanding women's hairstyles, but it seemed to be called a mullet hair. I thought she was a college student, probably in her early 20s. She wasn't flashy, but had a kind of soft, approachable, and cute face. Usually, she was well-dressed, but that night, she was in a tracksuit unusually. She staggered down the street at night, weighed down by the plastic bags she carried in both hands. After I finished at the convenience store and entered the alleyway to my apartment, I saw her not far ahead, standing still with 2 plastic bags at her feet. One of the bags had ripped open under the weight of its contents. "What's wrong?" I asked. When I called out, she looked up at me with a pleading expression. "It's just heavy." Following her words, I looked at the bags on the ground. Each bottle contained 4 2-gallon of mineral water, 8 in total. I thought it was a rather hefty purchase and decided to lend a hand. "I'll carry half of it. You live in that apartment building over there, right?" "Yes, but are you sure?" I assured her it was no problem, although I was a bit bothered by the overpowering smell of her shampoo. As we walked along carrying the bags full of water bottles, I asked about the situation. About an hour ago, she had been using the shower at home. Just as she started washing her hair with shampoo, the hot water stopped. She had only planned on showering, so the bathtub was empty. She wiped off the shampoo suds with a bath towel as best she could, and then stepped out of the bathroom in her tracksuit. So she hadn't rinsed off the shampoo. That's why the smell was so intense. I nodded in understanding, feeling strangely satisfied with her explanation. Despite this, her story continued. Just as she stepped out of the bathroom, the doorbell rang. It was her neighbor, checking to see if her water was also out. It turned out the water was out in all the apartments, and everyone started making a fuss. Someone called the property management company who managed the building. When they came to check, it turned out to be a problem with the water tank. They called a professional to repair it, but it couldn't be fixed that night, and so, everyone had to spend a night without water. That's why she had gone to buy bottled water at the convenience store. I helped her carry the water bottles up to her room. She thanked me repeatedly, looking quite embarrassed. "That's quite a disaster. Must feel awful with your hair full of shampoo." At my words, she put her hand on her own head. "Yes, so, after buying the water, I thought I'd boil some and wash it out." As she said this, something flashed in her mind, and her eyes lit up. "Right, there's a spa down the street past the convenience store, isn't there? Maybe I'll go there. It's been a while since I last visited a spa. I wouldn't usually." I nodded, turned on my heel to leave. And then remembered something. Remembered, and turned back to her. "That spa, it's closed on Tuesdays." Her hand, which was inserting the key into the lock, suddenly stopped. Then she looked at me with her mouth gaping. There weren't any other internet cafes or the like where she could use a shower in this neighborhood. "If you'd like, you can use mine. It's old, but I keep it clean, so it's not dirty." She lived in what you might call a fancy designer condo. In contrast, I lived in a 40-year-old, 2-story wooden apartment building. At best, it was of a retro design, but simply put, the decay was severe. It was a rickety old apartment. but I liked it. There wasn't any particular inconvenience, and the location was good. My room was on the second floor, and it got decent sunlight. And above all, the rent was by far the cheapest in this area. I even doubted whether it was a crime scene when I first moved in. The layout of the room was such that as soon as you entered the front door, the kitchen, about the size of a small dining room, was to the right and a bathroom unit was to the left, and there was just one larger room in the back. She was a little hesitant about my invitation, but losing to the unpleasant feeling of her hair, she eventually came to borrow the shower. She came to my room with a fearful look on her face, looked around with a curious look on her face, and then entered the bathroom. Immediately, I heard the sound of hot water running and pitter-pattering from the shower. I felt as though I was listening to a sound I shouldn't be hearing. So, I turned on the TV in a hurry. Thanks to you, I feel refreshed. I'm glad I could be of help. Exchanging these words, I saw her off from the doorway. A few days later, in the area where my apartment is located, there was a prior notice that due to power supply demand tightness, a planned power outage would be implemented for about 2 hours from around 7 p.m. It may be inappropriate for me to say this, but I was looking forward to a little taste of what a power outage would be like, if only for a couple of hours. And at exactly 7 p.m., it became pitch dark outside the window. The lights in my room remained on. Wondering what was going on, I went outside of the apartment. It turned out that even though this whole area was said to be affected, my apartment was excluded, and the power outage had occurred up to the other side of the narrow lane. I was left a bit surprised, not knowing whether to be happy or disappointed. Then, she came out of the condo across the street, which was affected by the power outage. When I greeted her, she also bowed her head, saying, "Thank you for the other day." And then she sighed and said, "It's a power outage this time. It's so annoying. And I have an exam tomorrow." She had heard the notice about the planned power outage, but it seemed like she was sure it would be cancelled. But still, taking the previous water outage as a lesson, she had stored some water. In cases where water tanks are used in condos, water is sent to each room using electricity, so if there is a power outage, water will also stop. And when the power really went out and the lights turned off, she thought she would try to imagine the exam questions in the dark, almost like a meditation. She was thinking about making some tea to calm down. But my place is fully electric, so not only do the lights not turn on, but I also can't get water or heat water. And so, far from calming down, she became frustrated and decided to go to a fast food restaurant near the station to study. I was about to tell her that in my room, the lights are on and I can heat water, but I decided not to. Instead, I said, "Well then, good luck, take care," and saw her off. Then, the next evening, when I was returning from work and about to leave the station, I saw her arguing with the station staff inside the ticket gate. "Good evening. Is something wrong?" "Oh, Joe." I didn't remember introducing myself to her, but maybe she had seen my nameplate when she came to borrow my shower. "I don't have enough money for the train fare." "Train fare? How much?" she answered with a face that looked like the world was ending. 80 cents. 80 cents. Nowadays, 80 cents. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. But anyways, I lent her the money anyway. She successfully exited the train station and headed home with me. "I think I dropped my phone in the train," she said. She's always been one to go cashless, paying with her phone wherever she went. Of course, she carried a bit of cash too. But that day, she had just finished her college exams and had an early dinner with her friends to celebrate. The restaurant they entered only took cash, and she used up most of the cash she had. Then she took the train, but she used her phone as her train pass as well. She was able to go through the ticket gate when she boarded the train with her phone, but after she got off, she lost her phone and couldn't get out of the station. When she explained the situation to the station staff, they checked for lost items, but told her, "We have no matching reports yet. You can either wait a little longer, or hope that the train crew finds it when the train she was on goes back to the garage." Regardless, she had to pay the train fare. It was okay to self-report the station she got on at. She should have just said she boarded from the next station, but she honestly answered. As a result, the fare from that station was 80 cents more than what she had left in her wallet. If she had a debit card, she could have withdrawn cash from the ATM on campus, but she always left her debit card at home and relied on her phone. The next morning, she came to visit me, out of breath, as I was leaving for work. She had withdrawn cash from the ATM at a convenience store last night. Since she didn't have a landline at home, she searched for a public phone in the neighborhood and just contacted the railway company. Then she found out that her phone was stored as a lost item. "So I'm going to go pick it up now." Saying that, she ran off, then came back to me as if she remembered something, and paid me back the 80 cents I lent her yesterday. Watching her leave, I couldn't help but laugh. I felt like I had become her uncle or something. Then, next weekend, while I was shopping at a nearby supermarket and checking out, I spotted her at the next register. She was, unlearned, paying with her phone again. After checking out, I approached her at the batting station and spoke to her. "Hello, are you shopping?" She looked surprised for a moment, but as soon as she recognized me, she smiled and said, "We've been running into each other a lot lately, haven't we? Maybe we just didn't notice each other before. We might have been passing by each other all the time." We left the supermarket and walked home together. Lately, I've been really unlucky. Remember the water cut off, and the scheduled power outage the other day, and dropping my phone, and the train fare? She looked up in the sky and shook her shoulders back and forth in a bored manner. "I'm really fed up. I failed my college exam, and I made a mistake at my part-time job and got scolded. And the other day when I was walking on the street, I even got pooped on by a crow." I chuckled through my nose. Hey, we all have times like that. Suddenly, she got an idea and said, "Hey, Joe, can I use your kitchen today?" I said okay, but asked why, and she answered. The reason she hasn't been lucky lately is because of the apartment she's living in. Since she moved there, she feels like her luck has turned bad. "I'm not good at cooking, but I'm good at making omelets, but the apartment I'm living in is all electric with an induction heater." She said that with an induction heater, she couldn't make an omelet the way she wanted. I thought blaming it on the tools was a bit much. Maybe it's a kind of exorcism. If I can make a good omelet with gas, maybe I'll move to a place that's not all electric. I didn't expect the word exorcism to come out of her mouth. Sure, why not? Give it a try. I'll taste it for you. The omelet she made turned out overcooked and hard, far from delicious. Several more days passed. A major hurricane was approaching, and the company ordered us to finish work early. Just after 4 p.m., I left the office and got on the train for home. As predicted, the weather was threatening, with strong winds blowing and ominous, thick rain clouds hanging in the sky. I did some shopping at the usual supermarket on the way home and hurried back to my apartment. When I got there, she was sitting alone in a squatting position in front of my door. "What are you doing? Is something wrong?" I asked. She looked up with a sad face and told me that a group of friends from her college club, who she was very close with, had organized a mixer a few days ago. She found out today that she was the only one not invited. She said she felt left out. What a foolish thing to worry about. Well, that's youth for you, I said, laughing off the situation. Anyway, the wind is getting stronger and it's starting to rain. The storm is coming. You should go home. Or would you like to come in? To my surprise, she said she would like to come into my apartment. The storm was getting closer and the wind and rain were intensifying. My 40-year-old poorly constructed apartment was making all sorts of creaking and groaning noises. She looked anxious the whole time. She probably has never heard such noises in her fancy apartment. "Are you going to eat with me? I'm making fried rice for dinner." I called out from the kitchen. She happily accepted the offer and came to the kitchen. I placed the frying pan on the gas stove, added some oil, and started tossing in the ingredients one by one. With a swift backward pull, I tossed the fried rice in the air with the pan. "Wow, you are good. Can I try?" she asked. I handed over the pan to her, who was very motivated. She shut the pan once. The fried rice in the pan didn't budge. With a serious look on her face, she tried again, putting more strength into it. The fried rice leaped out of the pan, scattering around. "Oh no, it spilled out," she said. "Let me do this," I offered. I gently pushed her to the back of the room and resumed cooking. Then, we sat across from each other at a small table and ate the fried rice. Thanks to the storm, the room was noisy with all the creaking and groaning. "Have you lived here for a long time?" she asked. "Well, I'm about to renew my lease for the third time, so about 6 years, almost 7, actually. Why do you ask?" I responded, looking up at her. She seemed lost in thought. Then, she pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. It was a horoscope app. It says, "A time of many troubles. Reconsidering your current environment might be beneficial." "Do you believe this kind of stuff?" I asked. "Well, not necessarily, but it's kind of on my mind. Some things do come true," she replied. Now, I understood what she was trying to say. She had previously mentioned that her recent streak of bad luck might be due to her current apartment. And now, this horoscope suggests she should reconsider her environment. The first thing that came to her mind when she thought about changing her environment was her apartment. She may be wondering if she should move or not. And so, out of curiosity, she asked me how long I've been living here. The other day, it was an exorcism, now a horoscope. I realized she was surprisingly superstitious. "So, are you thinking of moving?" I asked. "How did you know? Are you a clairvoyant?" she responded. "What is clairvoyance?" So she's not only superstitious. Well, why not? A fresh start can be a good thing. Maybe you should consider moving, I suggested. "I guess so. Maybe I really should move after all." She seemed to be still struggling. But I thought, if she decided to move and disappeared from the apartment across the street, I would feel lonely in a different way. She said she was about to go home, so she was putting on her shoes in the entryway. The peak of the hurricane seemed to have passed, but even so, it was still pouring rain outside. "Thanks for the fried rice." "Hold on, I'll walk you home." With that, I grabbed my coat and quickly put on my shoes. Even though I said I'd walk her home, her apartment was right across the street. The width of the street is only about 13 feet. It only takes a few steps to get to the other side. But I wanted to walk her home. We descended to the first floor of the apartment. I opened the coat I was carrying, and we both held it above our heads like a makeshift umbrella. "Let's go." Then, 1 step, 2 steps. The rainwater pooled on the road splashed up. 3 more steps and we could cross the road. I shouted, holding her shoulder. "All right, let's go for it." "Yes. On your marks, get set, go. Hop, step, jump." We landed in front of her apartment. Then, she pulled my hand and dragged me into the entrance. "I've decided. I'm going to move." "Ah, so you've decided." I regretted a bit for telling her to move unnecessarily. "Can I have your contact?" When she asked, I gave her my cell phone number. She saved that into her smartphone. "I'll send you an email later." I silently nodded and said goodbye to her. A month later, she left the apartment across the street. I thought I would feel lonely not seeing her face anymore, but that was not the case. Instead, I became busier. Because I'm exchanging emails with her many times a day. How did you like today's story? Your channel subscription and likes give me the motivation to keep creating. I'm also looking forward to reading your comments. See you in the next video.